what I'm going to discuss today would be the continuation of Module 4, which is the accounting cycle part 2. Part of it would be accounting cycle number 5, which is actually continuation of my discussion on adjusting entries, because accounting cycle number 5 is about the preparation of worksheet, including adjusting entries. But I discussed to you first the adjusting entries because it will be the first thing that we're going to do when we prepare the worksheet. But of course, the trial balance is also needed. The last topic that we had in Module 3. Okay, so the worksheet. The accountants often uses a worksheet to help transfer data from the adjusted trial balance to the financial statements. This multi-column document provides an efficient way to summarize the data for financial statements. So the accountant generally prepares a worksheet when it is time to adjust the accounts and prepare the financial statements. Note, however, that it is possible to prepare financial statements directly from the adjusted trial balance at the end of the accounting period if the business has relatively few accounts. So, pwede ra, no? Pwede ra why I actually worksheet as long as when you have already prepared the adjusting entry and prepared the adjusted trial balance. When we say the adjusted trial balance is actually the result of the affecting the adjusting entries that we made. The unadjusted trial balance is the trial balance that we prepared after the posting to the ledger. So the one that doesn't have any adjusting entries yet, amo ato an unadjusted trial balance. Again, ang adjusted trial balance is the unadjusted trial balance plus or minus the effect of the adjusting entries. And then the trial balance is what we call now the adjusted trial balance. The worksheet simplifies the adjusting and closing process. So dali ra, no? Actually, kung joining mo worksheet, dali ra maghimo ng financial statements, dali ra kan maghimo ng closing entries, later on. It can also reveal errors. The worksheet is not part of the ledger or the journal, nor it is a financial statement because it is just a working paper. Take note, it's just a working paper for accountants in preparation to prepare the financial statements and the closing entries. It is a summary device used by the accountant for his convenience. So we have there the basic structure of the worksheet is presented in Exhibit 5.1. So the illustration here would be, of course, at the weddings are us. So the first illustration and the second illustration would be the one of the continuation of the Harvard or that of Harvard Medical. Ano ba to? Harvard Medical. My God, I can't really recall class. Harvard Medical Center, on which the proprietor is, sino pa to proprietor ka? This is Marasigan, no? Okay. Antiguyang nagajuklas din nagajud, makadumdum dato pagdali. Okay, so again, this is how the worksheet looks like. Note that the worksheet has the heading again, that is again given 5 points. You should have the complete title, the name of the business, the title of the device, the summary device, which is worksheet, and then for the month ended or for the year ended, and specify the month or the date and the year. Of course, remember that if it's a fiscal year, it should end at the end of the month of that month. And then you have the account code. You have to write the account code if it is given in the problem. Do not write the account code do not assume account code if it's not given in the problem. Then account title, no? Aton account title. Actually, this is extracted from the trial balance that you have prepared after the posting to the general ledger. So amo ini, imo ra simply copy. So how it is written in the trial balance, no? According to what is given in the problem would also be the same manner that you're going to copy it from the trial balance going to the ledger. So account title, you should really start here from the margin. Do not leave space, no? So that, remember that accounting is an art. I will always remind you na dili ko gugunahan na job ay kajoy naka-indent na geometry na margin na pwede naman ipikit din on ang account title, no? And then you have the columns, the trial balance columns and adjustments column, adjusted trial balance column, the statement of income columns or the income statement columns, and the statement of financial statement columns, statement of financial position columns. Take note, class, that each column, no, has a debit and credit column also, no? So duha sa siya underneath is debit and credit. Let's say I always ask you na kung magpalit ka mo ng columnar notebook, kung pwede 10 columns na dyan, advisable. But more than 10 columns will do. But less than 10 columns would be a difficulty on your part on how to allocate spaces for the additional columns or the other columns. Okay. Simply, as I've said, whatever is the trial balance, i-forward na nato din no? Account title, or if there's an account code, then the account title should also be written, and then the amount, if it's a debit balance, then you write it in the debit column. And if in the trial balance it's a credit balance, or in the credit column, you also copy it in the credit column of that trial balance. Again, the trial balance here may mean it is the unadjusted trial balance. Okay? Again, this trial balance here is the unadjusted trial balance. Okay. So how to prepare the worksheet? So these are the steps, no? Copy the account titles and its balances from the trial balance to the unadjusted trial balance or the trial balance column only. No need to specify because it is understood that it is the unadjusted trial balance. And total the debit and credit columns. Dapat gadyon. Whatever is the total there in your trial balance should also be the same total in the trial balance column in the worksheet. The numbers and titles and balances of the accounts as at May 31 are lifted directly from the ledger from the adjusting entries before the adjusting entries are prepared. The accounts are listed in the worksheet in the order they appear in the ledger, no? Actually, dili ko sa ledger as they are listed in the trial balance, no? Dapat ana siya. Total debits must be equal to total credits, of course, no? Because we have already discussed that the trial balance, if there is a discrepancy, how are we going to locate the discrepancy? So accounts with zero balances, salaries, payable, interest payable, etc. are also presented even if they don't have any balances, no? Listing all the accounts with their balances helps identify the accounts that need adjustments. This practice will help ensure the achievement of completeness and accuracy in the adjustment process. So simply the kopya na nato dyan, no? We simply copied it again, as I've said, dito. So I just showed it there to you. Actually, this is the Perez Manalo aton sa Weddings Are Us. No? Pag-extract na nato ang trial balance column. Isa-isa na ako siya pag-present, no? Para for you to be able to understand the transition from the first column to the next columns. Okay. By the way, take note, no, that the heading is centered, no? Centered within the text of the 10-column worksheet. Dili isa pwede na ari diri ibutang o diri ibutang, dapat nakasentro siya. In a face-to-face class, the worksheet is a lengthy sheet of paper, no? basta aran sa kadako class that you will really enjoy using that paper when you are having the face-to-face class, no? But it really looks like damo gyapon sa column na notebook na 10 column lamang kay mas dako si Ja sanan mas wider ang space na imo suyatanan amount. Okay? Next is enter the adjusting entries, the account titles and amounts to the adjustment columns, and total the debit and credit column. So ato taghimo na og sa gani I discussed first to you an adjusting entries before the worksheet so that when we prepare the worksheet diretso na dili na kita mo stop, no? Dili na kita mo stop na mag-prepare pa kita o mag-compute pa kita ng adjusting entries amount, no? For those accounts that requires adjustment. When a worksheet is used, all adjustments are first entered in the worksheet. The required adjustments for weddings are as were explained in the previous chapter aton module number 4 aton lesson 1. So the same adjustments are entered in the adjustments column of the worksheet in Exhibit 5-2. As each adjustment is entered, a letter is used to identify the debit and credit debit entry and the corresponding credit entry. Note that the adjustments are not journalized until after the worksheet is completed and the financial statements are prepared. Because actually, class, is step number 7, no? Is step number 7 in the accounting cycle states that the adjusting journal entries are journalized and posted. Dito pa, anton journalized, amo pa ta formal naghimo ng entry na amo naton ato sa step number sa lesson 1 and module 4 ato adjusting entries na ako tag ano pa ini tag record, no, aton the previous meeting. So those mo lang nakita na posted, tag-post siya sa general ledger, no? Dili kon basta kay nauna ra gyud ang worksheet paghimo deserve pa an pag-formal non-preparation of the journal entries, of the adjusting journal entries. Okay, so amo na ini, no? Take note na kung si I, kung for example ato first entry, letter A, debit to prepaid debit to rent expense. Where's rent expense? Dari A, no? Debit, so ibutang nato ang debit entry sa debit column, but of course naka-specify kita diri nan letter, no? A 4,000 and A also on the credit column is the prepaid rent at on debit to. Remember that the adjusting entry for the prepaid rent was debit to prepaid expense rent expense and credit to prepaid rent. Okay, then B aton sa insurance, so debit to insurance expense and credit to prepaid insurance. So dyan na sub A, no? B 1,200 debit and the credit is the prepaid insurance account. Then letter C, ato next ato adjusting entry was for the supplies, debit to supplies expense dalawa. Debit to supplies expense under debit column, no, of the worksheet or under adjustments column, and credit to the asset account, which is the supplies account, for the same amount, of course. And then letter D, on the recognition of the depreciation expense. So we debit depreciation expense here with letter D for 4,000 and credit to accumulated depreciation for 4,000. So if you have already this one, kung doon na ijo ini na adjustments, dali ra kanidyo paghimo nan formal na adjusting journal entries, which is step number 7. So letter E aton sa depreciation na sub for the office equipment. So debit to depreciation expense office equipment na 1,000 and credit to accumulated depreciation office equipment for 1,000. Letter F, may ija debit. The debit to letter F is dari. Debit to unearned referral revenues. Aton liability account, aton collected in advance na income pero waya pa maka-perform nan service. So ato to reverse, we debited, no? Because the normal balance of the liability or the unearned referral revenues is a credit because it's a liability. And when we reverse, not to recognize the revenue, then we debit the unearned revenue account, referral revenues. So debit to 4,000 and credit to the referral income or revenues for 4,000. Credit, no? Again, debit to unearned referral revenues and credit to referral revenues, which is an income account. Next, after letter F is letter G. Okay, so letter G is debit to accrued salaries, debit to salaries expense, 1,800, and credit to salaries payable, no, 1,800. Then letter H, aton accrual for the interest expense, if you may recall, no? So debit to interest expense for 3,500. Letter H, no, and credit to interest payable for 3,500. Take note, class, andoon mga accrued expenses, class, like dapat manggod in actual practice class, dili siya separate ng salaries payable, utilities payable, and interest payable, no? But for purposes of discussion in Accounting 1 or BA1 or Accounting 100, dapat gadjud ma-separate account, no? Ang accrued expenses, dili siya itibo sa accrued expense account, no, accrued expenses account, which is in practice the account title for accrued expenses, no? So taglain-lain na lamang for purposes of discussion, no? You have salaries payable, utilities payable, and the interest payable. And then HI, atong consulting revenues, no? Atong consulting revenues, may debit. Jari, accrued receivable, no? Na debit to accrued receivable, accounts receivable, and credit to 5 consulting revenues for 5,300. Aton, if you may recall, it represents na nag-deal ko ng client na wala pa ko kabayari, no? But of course, the service is already provided or rendered. And then HIJ, may J. O yan na, because we are only up to letter H. I. Kita ko ato adjusting entry class. Okay, ana ra si dyan, no? Kung uno may ato taghimo, ako, para sa ako, you first prepare the adjusting entries, no? Before preparing the worksheet, kaya para mas dali na, madiretso-diretso na ka, no? Otherwise, it would take you much time, kaya nag-transfer na ka lagi, pero diri ko nasango. Pero when you prepare the adjusting entry, mas dali ra kan sa ito, no? To complete the worksheet. Okay, next. Exhibit number 5-2 kuno is the adjustments. Aton natag take up, naton I discussed it with you. Next step is compute each account adjusted balance by combining the adjusted trial balance and the adjustment figures, no? Enter the adjustments amount in the adjusted trial balance column. If the result of the adjustment, if the normal balance of the account in the trial balance is a debit, if the adjustment is a credit, then you have to deduct. That is cross-footing, no? Ang tawag na, di ba, remember, footing and from top to bottom, no? Remember, the term in accounting for adding, for summing items from top to bottom is footing. But when, that is vertical, no? That is vertical addition. But when you, when you add items or subtract items horizontally, then that is cross-footing. Okay. So if it's a debit and there is a debit entry, then what will happen to the account? Then dapat mag-increase. If the adjustment is a debit. Now, for example, if the trial balance is a debit and has a debit balance or is recorded in the debit column, and then the adjustment is also on the debit column, meaning to say the account should be added, the amount should be added to come up with the adjusting entry that to be placed to the debit column. But if the adjustment in the worksheet is sa trial balance, no, sa unadjusted trial balance, it is a debit balance, and the adjustment is a credit entry, then of course we have to subtract because we have a different signs because the other account or the other balance is debit while the other entry is credit. Kung debit, so i-add, credit, i-add. Credit, debit, i-minus, debit, credit, i-minus. Okay. So again, pareho ra gyapon sa ledger, kung hain ang mas dako na amount adto ibutang ang balance. Kung debit, mas dako ang debit kaysa credit entry, so ibutang sa debit. Pero kung mas dako ang credit kaysa debit, so ibutang ang balance sa credit. So the first line showed that the debit was 22,000. Okay. There is no adjustment to the cash account so that the 22,000 is entered to the debit column. So what about if, sige, there ka na ko class, I will discuss it with you, whatever is there in the worksheet already. There ka, no? Okay, so look at there. Now we have already the adjusted trial balance column. Diba, remember, I just shown to you in the Exhibit 5-2 that only up to how did we post the adjustments amount in each respective debit or credit column. Okay, so for example, how are we going to cross-foot? No? Amo na ini issue. That, for example, cash, there is a trial balance debit, job by adjustment, none. So you forward it back, or you forward it to the adjusted trial balance, not 22,200 gihapon on the debit because there was no adjusting entry in, no adjustments were made for that account. Okay. For accounts receivable, we have a debit in the unadjusted trial balance of 12,000, and we also have a debit under adjustment. So, meaning to say, kay debit man ang entry, so ato i-add. That's why under the adjusted trial balance, the balance there for the accounts receivable is 17,300. So, dire, for supplies and prepaid rent and prepaid insurance, ang balance sa unadjusted trial balance is under debit, but we had a credit adjustment. So what we did, i-minus gadot si Jack, debit, credit man. Okay? So 18 minus 3,000 is 15,000. 8,000 minus 4,000 is 4,000. 14,400 minus 1,200 is 13,200. Actually, these balances were the balances when we computed for the adjusting entry, when we show the balances after the adjusting entry that we made, or just the discussion that I prepared. No, I did not actually prepare the T account for the rest of you during my discussion, but it is understood that when you record this transaction or the adjustments, it would really, it's either it would increase the account or it will decrease the account. So service vehicle, no adjustments were made. So simply copy it there. So the accumulated depreciation from the adjusted trial balance, 0 pa. And then suddenly we have already made an adjustments for the depreciation for the period, 4,000. So of course the balance will be 4,000 because 0 man there is an adjusted trial balance. So office equipment, no adjustment. So diretso copy it to the same column, no, in the adjusted trial balance. And then the accumulated depreciation, diba, ato tag prepare na adjusting entry. So we simply, when we add 0 plus 1 would be 1,000. Credit side because there was no entry amount under the unadjusted trial balance. Notes payable, so the same. So copy, credit. Accounts payable, credit to credit also under the adjusted trial balance. Salaries payable, initial recognition when we prepare the accrued salaries for the period. So 1,800. Credit maza, so dibutang sa nato sa credit. Utilities payable, no adjustments made. No, so we direct it to the credit side also of the adjusted trial balance. Interest payable, we have only an adjustment, no, for the interest recognition, not on accrued interest. So we credit because it is a liability, so that's why it is on the credit column. So you forward it to the credit column also because there was no transaction again in the unadjusted trial balance. So unearned revenues, though there was already a recognition, it was said na 4,000 has already been collected, also has been performed. So naka-perform na sila na naton wedding, no? So from 10,000 nakuhaan ng 4,000, so the balance is now 6,000. So, remember this is collected, the 10,000 is collected in advance. So, the 4,000 was already naka-perform na ng service. It was a liability because it was collected in advance and no service yet was provided. After the service was provided, that's why we recognize it for the amount stated here. Then, no adjustment also for Perez Manalo. Take note that withdrawals are always on the debit side, no? Okay, usahay because this portion is actually for credit, and then all of the sudden there was Perez Manalo withdrawals that sometimes would be thinking that it has also a credit balance, that you would place it under the credit column. So take note that withdrawals always has a normal balance of debit together with the expense accounts. And the income summary account, no, blanco pa, because as I've said, we will be computing that one later on. And then consulting revenues, there was an adjustment. So credit, so that's why the balance becomes 67,700 on the credit column. Referral revenues, the one that we atong tag-adjust from unearned referral revenues to earn, no, that's why we have a credit to 4,000. And the initial recognition of the expense here, but salaries expense, may dahil sa trial balance, an adjusted trial balance, plus the adjustment amount of 1,800 now, which is also a debit entry. So that's why it is added to arrive at the balance of the adjusted trial balance column. Supplies, no entries here, and then you copy that one simply. Utilities expense, no adjustment, so copy. And depreciation expense, initial recognition, wala pa previous amount, no, beginning balances. So that's why we simply copy it. And then you add, no, you have to take note the adjustments that when you have completed the column, then you should add. And of course, take note that the debit should always be equal to the credit column. So the totals of the debit column should be equal to the credit column. You have to take note of that. So you have, for the adjustment, we have 27,800 sa debit and 27,800 also sa credit. So meaning to say, it might be that our work is correct, no? But, and also, for the adjusted trial balance, we also have added or footed from cash down to the interest expense account. So that's why 62,400 is also equal to the credit column, which is 400. So dapat equal, no? If there's a discrepancy, meaning to say you might be tracing it back again to your previous ledger, no, or trial balance. So next is extend to the asset, liability, and honest equity amounts of the adjusted trial balance column to the balance sheet columns and to the income statement columns. Okay, so here, ito na statement of income. And before we complete or before we fill in the statement of financial position or the balance sheet column, we need to identify first which accounts are part of the statement of income or the income statement accounts, what are the income statement accounts, and what are the statement of financial position accounts. So you have there, of course, remember that the statement of income elements are income and expense, no? So kung ato tanawon, in 35,000 plus is already the computation of the difference. You have to blanco pa dyan siya, no? Granting na waya pa kita ka-compute. We just filled up the debit and the credit columns. Again, as I've said, this is a balancing figure, no? The income summary amount there is a balancing figure. That's why I highlighted ito tag-bold na ako, no, ng 35,000 tapos tag-italic pa gadyon para for you to identify it as a balancing figure. So, before we arrive at that one, we simply identify tanan. Di ba remember in the trial balance class and worksheet, ang income is right after non-income summary or sa withdrawals, no? And after income or revenues would be the expense accounts. O ana siya ang manner of presentation. So meaning to say, from this bottom, from consulting revenues down to interest expense should be part of your statement of income columns. So ato rin forward. Kung credit siya, ibutang sa credit dito sa statement of income. So credit, credit, debit, debit. Ano na siya? So before we have that 71,700, we add first, of course, this is 71,700 minus, no? 15,600 minus 3,000 minus 4,000 minus 1,200 minus 4,400 minus 4,400 by direct class and utilities expense. Okay. 4,000, then 1,000, miscellaneous expense, none, and then the interest expense, 3,500. So, i-deduct mo whatever balance is that, i-deduct mo sa credit column na 71,700 minus the total of this expense account would give you 35,000. Amo dyan balancing figure. What does that income summary means? Buti pa sa both class, when the balancing figure is on the debit column of the statement of income, meaning to say that is an net income. Ni ginansya. Kay looking at it, kung natatanawon ko dyan na nato worksheet, mas dako ang credit kaysa debits. Kung nato i-add, no? So, buti pa sabot, if the income summary in the worksheet is placed on the debit column and it is under the statement of income na columns, then it means there is a profit or net income. Okay. Again, the income summary amount there is a balancing figure after determining the total debits before the income summary amount and the total debits are deducted from the total credits to arrive the income summary amount. But if, for example, the expenses or the expense accounts are more than the income account, so buti pa sabot, the income summary should be on the credit column. Kung credit column siya, meaning to say there is or the company is at loss, no? Na alkansi siya. Okay, but of course, later on you would learn na income summary gajud, no? For an income, it is really a credit balance. It has really a credit balance. And if the balance of the income summary account is debit, meaning to say there is a loss or alkansi. Okay, so in completing the worksheet, no? So, kay nag-forward naman nato ato income statement accounts diri sa ubos. So, ang iya nato ma-forward ang sa taas na sum. So, tanan waya nato ma-forward na daily income and expense, no? Dapat ma-forward nato sa statement of financial position. Okay? So, tanawa. Di ba remember? So, dili na kita manghilabot inindini sa consulting revenues down to the interest expense. Kaya na-forward naman nato siya sa statement of income columns. So, dapat dili na sila ma-forward din sa statement of financial position. The statement of financial position, the elements are asset, liabilities, and capital. So, meaning to say, di ba remember, an arrangement sa trial balance is maguna ang asset, followed by liabilities, then followed by income, liabilities, then capital ba dyan? Sorry. Capital and withdrawal, no? Amo dyan siya. Then of course, remember that the income summary is also a income account, no? That is transferred from the net income is transferred, of course, to the capital account at the end of the accounting period. So you would be able to determine that one through the preparation of the closing entries. So, again, balikon ko, kaya nahuman naman nato in from consulting revenue down to interest expense. So, dyan rin sa taas, the assets, liabilities, and the capital and withdrawal accounts should be forwarded to the statement of financial position. Remember, the amount that should be placed here would be coming from the adjusted trial balance. Ha? Diri sa, no? Sa revenue, income, sa expense, dapat the values or the amount should be coming from the adjusted trial balance. Dili kun sa aton unadjusted, nandun before pa ng adjustments. Okay? So, ano ra? And take note that the income summary here, there is a statement of income, debit siya. Kung ato siya forward sa statement of financial position class, dapat the opposite. Kung debit siya sa statement of income, ibutang siya sa credit sa statement of financial position. Kung debit siya diri sa statement of income, ibutang nato siya sa debit. Credit diri siya sa statement of income, ibutang nato sa debit sa statement of financial position. So the opposite. Take note, no, that the income summary is under the statement of income should be forwarded to the statement of financial position. Kung debit siya, mahimo ng credit. Kung credit siya sa statement of income, mahimo siya ng credit. Okay? Ibutang siya sa credit. Okay, so dapat balanse, no? Okay. So, ang preparation ng statement of financial position or financial statements, remember, we have 5 basic financial statements, but for purposes of discussion in accounting 1, we would be only discussing the statement of income, the statement of financial position, and the statement of changes in equity. Although I will be discussing a little bit of the statement of financial position, no? A statement of cash flows. Okay. So that's it, no? So I have here attached the video references, no? For your additional information or knowledge on the topic of the worksheet. And also, jari sabaan, worksheet ni Marasigan or ni Harvard Medical Center. Okay?